Hello, I'm Jami Welch, and I'm going to be describing for y'all the two chapters that I've read for this week. I actually chose to read from the textbook, The Lessons Learned from Research, and it's actually a collection of research from the Journal for Research in Mathematics Education. So I just read chapters 1 and 2. And I've kind of looked through the book to see, what it was all about. And it's actually really interesting the way that it's set up. It's set up into 4 sections. So you have a section on teaching, learning, curriculum, and assessment. And so the first 2 chapters deal with the teaching section. And so they're all about motivating students. So it definitely resonated with me. Read several things that I feel like I can see in my classroom as I focus on teaching for understanding. And one of the things in the second chapter that just really resonated with me was actually creating learning goals that are about learning, not just about performance. So really kind of helping students see that it's not all about just getting the right answer, but how do we get there, and it's about learning how to get there, and just how much that's related to motivation. So okay, let me get into this. So chapter 1 is titled Findings from Research on Motivation in Mathematics, and it's not necessarily a study in and of itself, but it's actually more of a literature review. So it's reviewing literature on the motivation in mathematics classrooms. And there were 5 main points, or 5 key findings. One is that motivation is learned. So students, even at early ages, they believe that effort leads to success, and then eventually they kind of start to lose this in middle school, and they feel like, especially in mathematics, they feel like it's not about effort. They can try as hard as they want and they're not going to be successful. So motivation is learned is number 1. Number 2 is that success or failure interpretations of that matter for students. So if students see that effort leads to success, then that affects their persistence and how persistent they are. Intrinsic motivation is stronger than any extrinsic rewards. So as a matter of fact, if you students actually see external rewards as more like they see the task as more like just a means to the end. They're like, well, I don't really need to do this. There's not really much for me in this task. I'm just trying to get this sticker or this lollipop or whatever it is. And so it actually reduces the depth of knowledge and comprehension. Teachers matter. We know this, right? Instructional practices and expectations shape students' beliefs. So the teachers are an influence in motivation as well. And then you can also find some differences in inequities in education. The main one that the authors focused on here was gender, that girls often perceive themselves as less capable in the mathematics classroom than boys. And so if teachers are providing real-world, meaningful context for students, then that can foster long-term motivation. So the second chapter was it went perfect with that one, because it went into teaching for understanding as a motivation. And so this one I really, really enjoyed this chapter. It talked about there was a connection for teaching for understanding, and that if you're teaching not just for students to get the right answer, that's where their motivation comes from, and how can we do that as educators. So the key objectives here was that we saw that, like I said earlier, there needs to be an emphasis not on your performance goals, but on an actual learning. What are we wanting to learn here? Building and maintaining self-confidence in students. Encourage risk-taking. And I really liked what the author was saying here, was that if you're encouraging risk-taking, you're not discouraging seeking help. So your students feel comfortable taking risks and then saying, let me ask for help here, because I knew this was going to be a more challenging problem, and I've thought my way through it. Now let me ask for some help, kind of finishing it up. And whereas, a student who's not motivated, and if you're not teaching for understanding, you're just teaching to get through it, they say, oh, I don't know how to do this, I need to stop. And then they're not motivated to be persistent in problem solving. Promoting an enjoyment of mathematics is essential to that intrinsic motivation. And I thought this was really interesting, that if you can foster pride and positive emotions in students' work, that students that feel more prideful in their work, they're more motivated. And I thought, yes, definitely. I definitely see that. And so what was interesting there was that in this study, it began as the whole chapter began as a literature review on the relationship between achievement and motivation, and researchers who have studied that, and then on mathematics reform and how we need to reform mathematics classrooms. And the author said it's the same thing. We're saying the same thing, just to different people. So then they actually performed their own study where they looked at 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students, and before and after a fractions lesson. And so they assessed their content knowledge, and they also assessed their motivation and their perceptions of their own understanding and of their own abilities in mathematics. Where I thought there may have been, it may have been a little too subjective here, was that they did assess the teachers, how well they implemented these motivational strategies in their lesson, and they did it by watching videotaped lessons. So that was kind of a red flag for me as a teacher. I thought, while I agreed with all of it, that was just something that, since my research course this summer, I thought, but I thought it was really interesting. Both of them dealt very much with motivation in the classroom, within the mathematics classroom. Thank you.